Let us see how you can work with your database on HestiaCP, specifically how you can check your WordPress install database. If you installed WordPress using the one-click install on HestiaCP, you're going to see how you can access that database. So let's go into DB and just do a general overview of the HestiaCP database. So if you come here, you're going to find all the databases that you've created. And if you happen to forget a password for a database, all you have to do is you just have to click on it and then you set a new password. And if it is already connected to an application, make sure you take the new password and add that as a new configuration detail. That is that. If you forget the password, you can come in here and change. You can even change the username. You can see this is a username that Hestia automatically set up for me. So you can come there. That is a username. Make sure that when you're using your username with your applications, you copy them from there. Let's go back. If you create a new database, let's say you create a new database and we'll call this database sample. Our database name will be admin2 sample. That is the DB name. And then the type, we only have MySQL. If you had Postgres installed, you'd see Postgres as well. Username, we'll use sample again. We'll copy the password, copy the username I mean. So of course, label them so that you can know which is which. And the password, set up a password. So the password, just copy that and save it somewhere too. But just remember, if you forget the password, you can always come back and reset it. Just change it here and then save. So if this database was being created for someone who is being hosted on your server, or you want to remember these details, you can just enter your email address and they will be sent to you. All these credentials will be sent into your email address. Advanced option, let's see what we have here. You can change the host. Right now, we only have the local host on our machine. We don't have any database being hosted externally. And of course, character. You can choose character here, but UTF-8 is a standard, so just use that. I'm going to save. And the database has been created. So if we come back here, we are going to see our new database has been added there, admin sample. So if you want to access this on the phpMyAdmin, just click there, phpMyAdmin. And since we are accessing it on the IP, we're going to get this risk because we cannot add our IP onto any DNS records. We're going to accept this and we're going to log in. What you need to do is, if you want to access your phpMyAdmin, what you should do is you need to access it through a domain name. You shouldn't access it through an IP. So that can be easily fixed. You can just go back here. Let's go back into the admin user, and the admin user has our website's host name. This is our website's host name. And I don't know if this is already accessible. This should already be accessible since we are using HestiaCP. Since we are using HestiaCP as our domain DNS provider, this should be accessible. Okay, so you can see that this is not accessible, but that's probably because we haven't set up the DNS records for this. Let's see, do we have a DNS zone for this? I will go back and I'm just going to delete this website and I will set it up again. Copy. I will delete it. You can set it up as the admin user, but let's go and set it up with the other user that we've been using to set up the different websites on our Hestia panel. So I'm going to come here under web, add a web domain, paste, create DNS zone, and then we're going to save that. And now, before we even do that, let us go back into the domain itself. Just click there, and we want to enable SSL, and let's encrypt. Save. So everything is working seamlessly for me because I am using HestiaCP for my DNS records. As I showed you in one of the previous videos, I showed you how you can set up DNS. So once we do that, if we come here, we should be able to visit this website. Okay, so just give it time to propagate well and everything is going to work. So let's try to log in into that domain. Copy. We're going to log into this domain. We're going to log in through this domain. Accept risk and continue. Now, if we go into our databases for this user and we go into DB, let's try and open phpMyAdmin. And this time round, phpMyAdmin will work because it is not being accessed via an IP. So let's try and log into one of the databases. So if maybe you want to import a database for one of these, you just copy the credentials. That was the database name. I don't need that. I do need the user, admin user, username, paste, and then the password. There is a password. And then login. And once you do that, you can now import your database into your server. Okay. And if you want to access WordPress installs, databases for your WordPress install, you can go into your WordPress files and find out the login credentials. So let me come in here, and where is my file manager? I will go inside of web, and let's say we want to access the database for this domain. I will go into public HTML and I will go looking for WP config. And while you're here, you might as well delete this. Delete the WP sample. Let's open this. Now, database settings, we need database name. We don't need that. Database user. We need the database user to log into our, maybe you want to import a database for that WordPress, or you want to change something on the DB. I will sign out of phpMyAdmin and I will paste, and I will come back, and the database password, that is our password. Copy, paste, login. Now you see why it's important for you to make sure that your server is secure, because once somebody gets access, they can just log into the different platforms that you are hosting. So you can see, maybe you want to change the options. Site URL, you want to change any options, you can change that there. Blog name. So let's just change this for the sake, and we're going to see if it's affecting the front end. Let's go into web, visit the website, and you can see it is changing our front end. That's how you can work with your HestiaCP database. You can create the databases, you can get their credentials, and you can use phpMyAdmin to access your database. Make sure when you're accessing phpMyAdmin, you're not using your IP, because your IP is not allowed to access phpMyAdmin. You have to access it through a domain that is connected. So you can log into your HestiaCP using any domain that is connected to it. And when I was installing Hestia, I told you to change the port to something that is Cloudflare acceptable. That's why I'm using 2053. Now the good thing with 2053 is that if you're hosting your website here and maybe you're hosting for other people and they decide to use Cloudflare, they can still access your front. They can still access HestiaCP using port 2053. The default port of Hestia is not accepted by Cloudflare, so you need to change the port when you're installing it, like I did. So if I go to port 2053, I should be able to log in. There you go. You can log in. Any website that you're hosting here, you can log into your HestiaCP from the backend. So that's it for this tutorial. I don't know if there's anything else that we need to cover here. Everything else I believe you can manage to cover on your own and learn on your own. That's pretty much it. One thing I've not looked at is mail. In the next video, let's do that one last thing before we say goodbye to this Hestia tutorial.